Hello and welcome back to What the HoL. In my reading, my notes on House of Leafs. We are on chapter 10 today. And as always, we're going to begin with the epigraph here from one Dagobert Frey, who was actually a Nazi, and he stole valuable art from Krakow and Warsaw during the Nazi occupation of Poland. So, he's quoting an art thief, Nazi art thief there. What a wonderful way to begin, right? Ugh. In case I make it not clear, like, I'm team punch Nazis in the face. Okay. Page 154. We get a reference to shape changers, and this is possibly a reference, or is a reference to the hand shadows that Tom makes on page 260. Starting on page 260. He conjures up a whole menagerie of creatures. But it kind of made me think of Ovid and Metamorphosis and like all those myths about people changing shapes. So it's interesting, Ovid's Metamorphosis starts with a creation story and has the overarching theme of love throughout it, like House of Leaves. It contains the stories of Daedalus and Icarus, Daedalus who built the labyrinth, and Icarus his son, of Orpheus and Eurydice, who we get mentioned in here as well, and the Minotaur mythology is also in that book. And I want to read part of the epilogue of Metamorphosis by Ovid, because I thought it was relevant. And now my work is done, which neither Jove, nor flame, nor sword, nor gnawing time can fade. That day which governs only my poor frame may come at will to end my unfixed life. But in my better and immortal part I shall be born beyond the lofty stars, and never will my name be washed away. Where Roman power prevails, I shall be read. And so in fame and on through every age, if Bard foretells the truth at all, I'll live. That's about like living on through your work. And we see that on many different levels in House of Leaves. You know, Navidson in his film, Zampano in his book, Johnny in his book, Mark C. Danilewski in his book. You know, that kind of idea. Okay, over here, we get this quote: "The great hall feels like the inside of some preternatural hull, designed to travel vast seas never before observed in this world." And that reminded me of, like, a whale. You know, this preternatural hull in the vast sea. And Jonah and the whale. So Jonah gets swallowed by the whale. And then whale reminded me of Whalestow letters, Filipino's letters. Down here, footnote 200, the person here is fake. Chris Thiel is fake, but this is a real edition of National Geographic. It's actually about dinosaurs, and it's interesting because I'll put a link to it down below, but on the Amazon page you can like zoom in on things. I couldn't find an actual copy I could look into, but it has a little table of contents on the cover here. And on page 36, where this article is supposed to be, is actually an article about Antarctic ice. Right, so that's interesting. And then also in that copy of National Geographic, there's an article on David Thompson, and he was an early explorer in North America and a map maker. Just thought it was interesting tidbit there. And we get into now the section where there's a whole lot of blank spaces and not a whole lot of notes on my end. I thought this was funny. On page 158, Reston says, "I should sue the bastards who designed this house." Reston shouts after him, "Haven't they heard of handicap ramps?" And I thought that was interesting. Reston has the name Rest in it, and rest is very important in House of Leaves. And I thought of Reston as like providing a bit of comic relief at times, providing us a rest from the horror. Yeah. I'm not talking about all the notes I make because some of them are for like things that don't make sense to anyone but me. So yeah, if you see notes that I'm not talking about, don't worry. On page 162 down here, we have a phrase, "It's impossible to leave a lasting trace here." And then we have this phrase again, "the woman you never want to meet." And that made me think of Pelifina, and if we go to page 620, we have this letter here where you're supposed to translate it, and each letter is the first letter of each word spells out a different word. That makes sense. We'll talk more about that when we get there. But if you take all the capital letters of this and spell them out, you get "no trace in the crowd," which I thought was interesting. On page 165, we get a reference to solopstic. I have trouble saying that word. I prefer to say dysolopsism because that flows better than solipsistic. Sure. Solipsism is a philosophical idea. It comes from the word comes from solus, alone, and ipsi, which is yourself, so alone by yourself. And this is the philosophical idea on a very surface level. Only one's mind is sure to exist. Knowledge outside of one's own mind is unsure. So it's interesting because some of the citations in House of Leaves are fake and some of them are real, and this kind of creates this uncertainty of existence in the outside world. If you have that reality mixed with fakeness, it creates unreliability and you feel like you're more alone. Helen Hodge is fake. We get another reference to mist here. This also happened on page 99. Pull that page up. We get a reference to mist right here in footnote 114. We get a reference here that Chad was playing it on page 99, and then we have this Mist-like discoveries. And Mist is a video game, actually one of the first video games I ever played, about traveling to different worlds through books. Okay. This guy's real. And here's where, down here, if we jump down, we can see this reference of real things mixed with fake things. So Sean Healy's real, Patricia Meyer-Spax is real, but Celine Arsley is fake. I wanted to talk about Kierkegaard here and his remarks on boredom. He actually has this other quote too that I liked about boredom. How dreadful boredom is, how dreadfully boring. I know no stronger expression, no truer one, for like is recognized only by like. I lie prostrate, inert. The only thing I see is emptiness. The only thing I live on is emptiness. The only thing I move in is emptiness. I do not even suffer pain. Pain itself has lost its refreshment for me. If I were offered all the glories of the world or all the torments of the world, one would move me no more than the other. I would not turn over to the other side, either to attain or to avoid. I am dying death, and what could divert me? Well, if I managed to see a faithfulness that withstood every ordeal, an enthusiasm that endured everything, a faith that moved mountains, if I were to become aware of an idea that joined the finite and the infinite. I said that funny. The finite and the infinite. The finite. Those words are pronounced differently, and that kind of bugs me. Anyways, I like this idea especially of like, the only thing I see is emptiness. The only thing I live on is emptiness. The only thing I move on is emptiness. Because that really kind of describes the house. Okay. page 169, we have both footnote 205 and 206. This is a book about Japanese architecture here, and it's interesting because Johnny then notes, "What you are quite right to observe makes no sense at all," and that doesn't make sense to us. This footnote about this footnote, and that's because on page 545, oh, that was fortuitous. I never actually turned to the actual page. We have Zampano actually saying, "I cannot even discuss Gunther Nitschke or Norbert Schall's, but the bastards reply it is unavailable." So he was unable to get a copy of those books, but somehow, still, he is quoting from those books. So that's why it doesn't make any sense. That happens again with the Christian Norberg Schultz here as well. That was another book that he couldn't get a hold of. On page 172, we have this question: can Navidson's house exist without the experience of itself? And it kind of reminded me of the question, the philosophical question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is there, does it make a sound? And I found a philosopher, Roy Bhaskar, who talks about this question, and he said, if men ceased to exist, sound would continue to travel and heavy bodies fall to the earth in exactly the same way, though ex hypothesis, there would be no one to know it. And that's the idea of the house. Would it still be there if there is no one to know or experience the house? Footnote 208, Michael Leonard's Humanizing Space. I actually found, if you go to the archive, the library archive online, what's it called? Open Library. If you go to Open Library, you can access a lot of these works. So I looked up the magazine Progressive Architecture from April 1969, and I'm actually going to now go over to a screen recording to show you the article, just because the way it looks is really cool, and then I'll read some quotes from the article as well. Sorry, my camera's very precariously set up, and I'm notorious for not editing, so I'm not going to. So this is the article Humanizing Space by Michael Leonard. I just thought these diagrams were all so cool. You can zoom in on a few of them. Positive and negative space. All these ideas of circles and stuff like that. Let's zoom back out there. And then we got these different ideas going on. Movement in space. Lots of cool. I thought the diagrams were really cool and really kind of mimicked a lot of House of Leaves type stuff. And that's the last page of that one. So I thought that was really neat. Yeah, as I said, again, openlibraryarchive.org. You can search up so many books and look inside them. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we're back to the book here. I just want to read a few more quotes from that article. So, although man becomes aware of a given space through the whole range of his senses, the final product in the perceptual process is a single sensation. This is the bigger quote from what's quoted here. A feeling about that particular space, and this he projects onto it, and so that any space will appear to have its own specific character. So again, we go back to the idea of the people in the house creating the house, or the people in the hallway creating the hallway. And then I thought this was interesting too. The womb provides man with his first enclosure. Exactly how much of this experience affects his later thinking is still conjectural. The first actions in man and animals make use of body controls before vision is fully operative. The point at which the child reaches out to touch objects is when he is coordinating his bodily sense of space with the visual structure of his environment. Psychologists have tended to classify the perception of space as a visual process, and textbooks show bias towards factors such as convergence, overlapping, and texture gradients. However, space may also be revealed by the sense of touch, sound, or smell, and inevitably some aspects of these serve to reinforce the visual sense. The deadness of sound in a heavily upholstered and carpeted apartment, or the resonant echo of footsteps in a cathedral give added definition to spaces. The smell of the damp walls of a cellar heighten the sense of enclosure. The feet utilize the sense of touch, or rather of pressure, to gauge changes in floor surface from carpet to wood, stone to cobbles, and more important, they sense the changes in inclination of the floor plan. I thought that was really cool. I'm really looking a lot at like senses in House of Leaves, so that's why that quote popped out to me. I'm just going to flip through and go to page 179. So we have this reference to Dr. Ogelmeyer, which is interesting. This is, I think, around this part of the book. I think it might happen in the chapter before as well. We get some like anagrams and stuff like that. So Dr. Ogelmeyer is actually an anagram of a character that appears on page 371. Dr. Mel O'Geary, who is a petrologist. They study rocks. So I thought that was interesting. Then we also get this reference down here to 10 flakes of blue. Blue as in the house. The house is blue. I also tried to tie it into the Matrix. I know they came out around the same time, so I don't know if Danilowski had seen the Matrix. But the blue pill is used to stay in the Matrix, so if he takes these blue pills, he's not going to get the truth. Because the house is a metaphor for mental illness and stuff like that is there too. So if he takes the blue pills, he stays in outside of his mind, his mental illness. But it's also interesting because Pelafina refers to her pills as flakes of color on page 615. Let me just find the page here. You see up here, she writes flakes of color in regards to her pills. And then also we get a reference to secret braille. And we do actually have some braille in the book. It's not actual braille. It is a 2D expression of braille, on page 423. Oop. And so we get this braille. And I'll talk about the interpretation, the translation of that and everything after. But yeah, we do get a reference to a previous page. And then on page 180 over here, we get this phrase, these Z's without Z. So that's like, as I should say, Canadian, these Z's without Z. Could that be a reference to Zampano? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Here we get this phrase, irony is a Maginot line. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's how I'm going to say it. And this was a line of defense between France and Germany in World War II. The French made it. It was comprised of extensive and interconnected bunker complexes, and what was kind of what happened is that the Germans just kind of went around the line instead of through it. Now it's used as a phrase to mean an expensive effort that offers a false sense of security. So it's a military term, so I associate that with Zampano, because Zampano is our military man. And it's also, this phrase is a rephrasing of another line that we get on page 20 of the introduction, where it says, "Irony can never be more than our own personal mega line." So, just a reference back to himself. He's becoming self-referential. Nothing on these pages. I'm just going to hop right to page 188 and talk about Gaston Bachelard. He's also mentioned on page 333 and page 400 as well. And this is the Poetics of Space. And there's some quotes from chapter 2 of that book I'd like to share with you. That chapter is called House and Universe. Discussing maternity in my book, La Terre et la Rêverie de Repose, I quoted the following magnificent lines by Mallows, in which the mother image and the house image are united. I say mother, and my thoughts are of you, O house, house of the lovely dark summer of my childhood. So the link between Pelafina and the house is there. Another quote is, "In this dynamic rivalry between house and universe, we are far removed from any reference to simple geometric forms. A house that has been experienced is not an inert box. Inhabited space transcends geometrical space." That's pretty cool. On page 189, we get these drawings of houses by children, which was a real study done by Francoise Minkowska. And on page 313, if I can move my notes out of the way, Chad draws a picture of a house. No chimney, windows, not even a door. So that's interesting. Okay, this is a bit of a reach, but here we get Navidson trying to open a door. It bends but does not give way. He tries again and again, each hit straining the bolts and hinges until the fourth hit at last tears the hinges free, pops whatever bolt held in place, and sends the door cracking to the floor. So I was trying to look up like the significance of 4. So I was looking at dates. So on August 4th, 1990, exploration A of the house begins. On May 4th, 1989, Pelafina dies. And then on May 4th, 1998, Johnny visits the whale stow. So I don't, just breaking through a door, don't know what that could reference. I'm not coming up with theories, as I say, I'm just pointing out interesting things. Page 193, we get a reference to the Zapruder film, which captured JFK's assassination. It's really often broken down frame by frame for analysis, especially by conspiracy theorists. And it's kind of like us, or like Zampano, analyzing the Navidson film, breaking it down frame by frame, and then us trying to break down House of Leaves page by page. And then we got a lot of these blank spaces. I think at one point I wrote, I have all this blank space, but I have nothing to say. 205, footnote 215, we get this note that there was a typo. So maybe they're suggesting that the period should be here and that this should be a small t. So it reads that something that was never there to begin with. But Mark Z. Donalewski says that there's no mistakes in House of Leaves. So could it be that the sentence was supposed to end here? And this is significant to begin with as a beginning of something. I don't know. And we also could possibly have the missing period that's over here on page 312. Okay. Page 206, we get a reference to one Ken Burns. He was a documentary filmmaker, and I saw this on his Wikipedia page. That said, he often gives life to still photographs by slowly zooming out subjects of interest and panning from one subject to another. It has long been used in film production, where it is known as the rostrum camera. This technique, possibly in many professional and home software applications, is now termed the Ken Burns effect. So that I thought that was interesting, was giving life to still photographs, and Navidson's photograph of Delisle. And then, again, I don't have another note for this very long chapter till page 231. There you go. I just wanted to look up what this word meant. Muntin, because it is an odd word. And Muntin is actually, I drew a little diagram here. Imagine this is a window pane, like a window, and these are all the little window panes in it. Muntin is the thing that's in between them. That's what a muntin is. And then, again, these pages are really cool to look at. I don't have another note until page 241. We get a mention of marooning, which is a color, but it is also like abandoning someone in a remote place. And we get a story of marooning on page 136 to 137. Okay, and that is it for chapter 10. And we're going to move into chapter 11 in the next video. So let me know your thoughts on chapter 10, and thank you for watching.